My name is Kendric Tonn. I'm a traditional oil painter working in a very classical manner, painting mainly figures in still life. I first started producing art in any serious way when I was in college. There was no reason for it, really. I just started drawing one day, and the next day I drew a little bit more and more and more, and started painting after a year or two, and this carried on. Art has been a part of my life for maybe less than you might expect. I was actually never one of the art kids in school. It was something that came on me a little later, just after I started college, really. I've always been interested in the nude figure in my work, forming connections between people and trying to understand, or in discovering you can't understand other people. And I think there's something very significant about the sort of unmodified figure that gives you this opportunity, whether successful or not, to attempt to make that connection with another person. I went to school initially for English literature. Actually, art wasn't on the table immediately, but I developed an interest and eventually decided to pursue formal education and training in art. I started at SCAD, the Savannah College of Art and Design, and spent 2 years there. It was a good 2 years. I learned a lot, but at the end of those years, I realized I wanted a classical, figure-driven, more formal curriculum focused on my interests. And so I applied to and ended up going to the Florence Academy of Art, where I spent 4 years doing my training as a painter. The Florence Academy was a interesting experience. It was wonderful, and I was very lucky to be able to do it. It was not easy. I never started crying in the middle of a critique and ran out of the room, but certainly many of my peers did. But it was a wonderful experience for all of that. After I finished my bachelor's degree, I didn't exactly know what I was doing. I ended up applying for a job in Japan and went there for a year. And I made a decision that I wasn't going to make any decisions for 6 months. And after 6 months had passed, I realized I had really been spending almost all of my free time wandering around drawing pictures, drawing and sketching and painting and experiencing the world sort of through that lens. And I made the decision to seek out formal education in the field. It's hard to say exactly what I find so appealing about art and the process of making art. It's something that is challenging and often frustrating. Every day is a little different. It brings me into contact with people and with situations I wouldn't normally cross paths with. It's a unusual way to make a life, but not a bad one. Probably one of the most unusual paintings I've ever done was a commission for a collector who wanted a painting of a nude model outdoors with a horse. It was slightly based off of a Sorolla painting he had seen and liked. And that was a unusual way to spend a summer with, not just myself out in the field and the model hanging out and the horse with the model. We used an actual horse all throughout every session. But then there was another horse to keep the first horse calm, and then of course there was the horse wrangler, and the lovely couple whose land we were using, often out bringing us lemonade. It was a very curious August. People ask me sometimes what my favorite piece of work I've done is, and it's a question I sort of struggle with. I don't really want to give the stereotypical pretentious artist answer, which is the next one, but there is some truth in that. Looking back on different pieces, sometimes I'm happy or not happy with the way I solved problems in them. Sometimes something about them still speaks to me. Often they remind me in a very pleasant manner of what I was doing or who I was or who I knew at the moment I was making the pieces. But it's very hard for me to single out a specific piece and say, that one's my favorite. In my work, I really hope to form a sense of human connection, to create that moment of recognition where the viewer looks at a piece and thinks to themselves or feels to themselves, ah, there's another person. I don't necessarily know who that is. Maybe I think I understand them, maybe I think I get a sense of who they are, maybe I don't, but there's that spark of connection between two human beings. I would like to continue painting, obviously. I'd like to show more in further venues. I'm hoping to do something on the East Coast, maybe in the New York area, in the next year or two. I'd like to make some larger pieces. I'd like to make more multi-figural pieces. I've always had an interest in classical themes, and that's something I'd like to treat again in the near future. But mainly, I've been very lucky to be able to paint and focus on painting for quite a while now, and I hope I can keep that luck going.